Woodrie with the Integration Group. And if you really want to learn how to level up your life, you should be listening to the Time to Shine Today podcast with my good friend, Scott Ferguson. Let's level up.
Time to Shine Today podcast, Varsity Squad. This is Scott Ferguson. In this episode, I bring you my really good friend from Alaska, Woodrie Burich. And Woodrie is with the Integrative Group, all about setting boundaries for yourself. I need so much help with that on a daily basis. My coach I work with really helps me set the boundaries, and Woodrie is a fantastic coach that will help you get there. Her backstory is fantastic. She's lived a life of having to really learn to set the boundaries herself. So she's somebody that's actually did the work, walked the walk while she's talking the talk. She's out there helping the masses really set their boundaries so they can live life to their ultimate human potential. So I have 4 pages of notes here that I built into the show notes below. Or if you're on the website or anywhere else, any platform, then make sure you check out the show notes as well if you don't catch something, because that was really detailed. And also, if somebody who needs help setting boundaries, please let me put them in touch with Woodrie. Or if you maybe just like and subscribe to this, I guess they're kind of my client. No, they're not my clients, but my sponsors and affiliates really love that. So without further ado, here is my really good friend, Woodrie Burich from the Integration Group. Let's level up. Time to Shine Today podcast, Varsity Squad. This is Scott Ferguson, and I have somebody that's way north of the border, but still in the United States. She's my really good friend, Woodrie Burich from the Integration Group. And at a time of high stress, declining mental health, and rampant burnout, Woodrie went on a mission to strengthen people, drive better outcomes, and offer hope. An award-winning thought leader, author, Forbes Coaches Council member, which that's kind of a big deal, squad. That's smarty pants there. And TEDx speaker, Woodrie's known for her proprietary approach to setting boundaries and building sustainable strategies in fast-paced and high-demand environments. She brings 20-plus years of leadership. I don't know it's possible if you see her. There's no way she's been doing anything for 20 years. And change management, experience working on global tech projects and billion-dollar mergers and acquisition work. And they're building a brand, a technology that is actually going to set your world on fire. And I'm so glad that you're here, Woodrie. Thank you so much for coming on. Please introduce yourself to Time to Shine Today podcast, Varsity Squad. But first, what's your favorite color and why?
Ooh, favorite color is purple.
Purple. Okay.
I think it's always been purple. I think it just kind of is deep and it feels, I don't know, just feels good.
Yeah, and what purple is, it's my favorite color too. And you have like the blue side, which is really chill. I'm looking at the Atlantic Ocean right now, and it's nice and sunny and blue. But there's also a side of Fergie that comes out when he needs to get stuff done, and it kind of rolls to the red. And it's royal and regal because everywhere in the Bible, purple was the thing. Just look at the books of Numbers. Everything's purple in there. So let's get to the roots of Woodrie. And squad, it's Woodrie, Woodrie. Isn't that right, Donnie? He messed up a spelling on something that she sent out to me yesterday, so I have to give a little hell for that. But Woodrie, let's get to the roots of you. I'd really like to kind of start because I know you're a sourdough or something. You said that in Alaska there, like she's not so much a native Alaskan, but she's born and raised there. And if you're watching on Vimeo or YouTube, squad, you can kind of see the snow outside her window there. So kind of cool. But no, seriously, Woodrie, what's our roots? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, thanks for the intro and thanks for having me. So I was born and raised in Alaska. It is snowing. It is April in Alaska and there's a little bit of snow still. But yeah, I really grew up here. My parents had their own business when I was really, really young. So I kind of grew up in this world of busyness and go mentality and entrepreneurship. And yeah, and when I went into the workforce, I hit the ground running, and I really didn't know another approach besides just push and push harder. And so I was a driver, and then I started having some chronic back pain and really dealing with some physical stuff at work. I think it was probably because I was working so many hours and just sitting at a desk all day, right? Like many of us do. And it really drove me on a path to try to find some really strong support tools for myself. Because what I kept finding was I would go outside of the work environment and I'd go to a yoga class to manage my back pain, or I would go to an exercise class so that I could get some movement. and I would feel great in that moment, but then I'd go back to work and it was just like a hamster on a wheel, go, 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 go.
Right.
Right. And so I had to find tools that not only helped me physically, but mentally from a mindset perspective in my work environment, so that I wasn't just always jumping from a moment of peace and bliss to a moment of just exhaustion.
Wow. That's so I can't wait to dig into some of these tools that you use now, because I'm first 90 minutes of my day are protocol heavy for me. 52 years old. I still compete in submission grappling, jiu-jitsu. Like I'm on the mats a lot of the mornings with 25, 30-year-olds that are trying to strangle the life out of me. And so I'm really protocol heavy for my first 90 minutes, all about me before I start serving others. But can you tell me like what kind of tools that you use to really kind of pull that mindset up, that which kind of led into probably your body follows within the mind? So let's dig in a little bit.
Yeah, I love, Scott, that you take that first hour and a half
I'm selfish.
in the morning for yourself. It's so vital, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's so vital to tend to ourselves. I think for me, some of the biggest tools that I've learned over the years is really just recognizing we pay a lot of lip service to this notion of tending to ourselves first. Everybody knows the concept, like use the oxygen mask on yourself first, and then put it on someone else, right, in order to serve. And yet I don't feel like we really always have the opportunity to live that. And there's a big difference, right, between recognizing the need for it and then actually choosing to step into that space.
Yes. Love it.
And there's a lot of reasons for that, right? Some of it is mindset, some of it's in my control, and a lot of it is external structures that keep us stuck.
Sure.
Right? If we look at wellness, for example, in the workplace, which is really the space that I play in, right? Work wellness within organizations, within teams, work for entrepreneurs. If we look at work wellness alone, it's a $50 billion industry a year, 50 billion, just work wellness, right? Just work wellness alone. And if we look at that and we see that how we've approached wellness historically is just at the individual level. It's not within the work structure piece. If we were going to fix it, we would have fixed it a long time ago. But there's these structures that keep us stuck. It's the workload, it's the workflow, it's the client expectations, it's the expectations we set up front, all that other stuff that kind of keeps us stuck, if you will. Yeah.
With that being said, the mindset is kind of shifted around it. Like again, selfish, and I say that a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you're selfish. But I love that you use the analogy with the oxygen mask and whatnot. But if you actually look selfish up in the dictionary, it's not a negative connotation to it. It's actually like taking care of yourself so you can be there to take care of others. If you're to really break it down, I mean, even I'm a Christian, okay, and even God even tells you take care of yourself. It's funny, I practice yoga 2 mornings a week, and there's a lot of people in there praying the other prayers, which is fine, that to each their own. But me, I just ask for guidance to help me be my best. So, because after that 90 minutes, Woodrie, it's about others. I'm blessed to have awesome coach, or be able to coach excellent people from professional athletes, actors, actresses, to house husbands and housewives. But I've got to be on point with that. And if I'm not, that boundary is not set on that first 90 minutes, I'm not me, and I'm not at the best I can be. So I know that you're like the boundary awesomeness. So can you kind of step into the boundary world for me and tell me what you kind of really do to help set those boundaries for people?
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. So, and I love what you just said there too, which is setting those boundaries, how much it actually serves you, right? When we look at the root of boundaries, there's so much to it, but when we really look at the root of what it provides us, it actually provides us deeper connection to self and connection to other. And it also helps us reclaim our power. That's really what we're doing. We're saying, here's my limit. Here's my boundary around that limit. This is how I'm going to tend to myself so that I can meet the needs of the moment. That's what I talk about a lot, right? Is how do we meet the needs of the moment? And I don't care if I'm at work and I'm heads down in Excel spreadsheets, or if I'm at home and I'm making peanut butter jelly sandwiches and the dog's going crazy and the kids are crying, right? Like it's all work. It doesn't really matter where that is.
You're serving others that whole time.
Exactly. And so we're really meeting the needs of that moment. And when we're strong and healthy and supported, we can have a greater impact on everything that we touch.
That's beautiful. There's nothing truer than that, because I love that you said the root of boundaries provides a deep connection to ourselves and others. If you have set the solid boundaries so what about people that might say, okay, I just can't set the boundaries. It's not going to work. How are you handling those clients of yours?
Yes, yes. It happens oftentimes, right? And I also think that initial rejection or that initial thought that we can't do it is common.
Okay.
One, I think one of the big challenges that we have is we don't have a lot of healthy role models modeling this for us.
Hmm.
We can't really see, we're used to these worlds, and I used to play sports in high school and college, and I know you come from high performance. We're used to driving, and there is such value in that. We need
Yes.
it. And for those of us who are driven from that perspective, our value and our opportunity is actually in backing off just a hair, right?
Say that
Because there's
again.
a balance. There's a balance to both of those worlds. So when we see that kind of initial resistance, if you will, to
Yeah.
the idea that boundaries will work, I look at two things. Well, what role models have you had? Have you ever seen someone who models very effectively how to have healthy boundaries for themselves so that they can come up and show up stronger, more present, more aware of the needs of the moment? Have you ever seen that? What does that
Right.
look like to you? And
That's
then the other question that I ask on
yeah.
that resistance side of the house
Yeah.
is, where's the fear coming in that space? Usually that resistance is arising from anger because they're frustrated. What I
Hmm.
find a lot of times is when there's resistance to it, there's actually frustration and anger because
So
they really
true.
want that freedom and
Yeah.
they don't have access to it.
And a lot of it, maybe you can tell me I'm wrong, but a lot of it can come from the fear of lack, like not having. And if I don't do this, I won't get this, in a sense. Does that make sense to you? Come from, because I was that dude. You
Absolutely.
know what I'm saying? It's like I used
Oh yeah.
to get on my team. This is years ago. I think I don't do it anymore. But I mean, like my mom always said, man, don't bother her before she had her first cup of coffee. You know what I'm saying that's how I used to be. And I adjusted myself to reclaim my own power. So if that meant I had to wake up half hour earlier to get my 60 to 90 in, then that's what I do. And I do it on the fly now. Now I make it a game. Once I started making it a game, it became a lot easier for me. So is any part of your protocol maybe trying to make it into like a game for them to play to win if they have that personality like myself?
Yeah, that's a great tool. It kind of depends on the individual.
Yeah.
To your point, if you're kind of cut from that cloth, absolutely, that's a great way to play it, right? Is play with the winning process. At the
Yeah.
at the root of boundaries, when you really get to the base root,
Okay.
right? We're talking about fear here. It's really about self-worth,
Hmm.
right? At one component, it's about self-worth, and the other is it's all about fear of what we're going to potentially, exactly what you're speaking about, what we're going to potentially lose if we don't do this. So
So
you've got to
good.
work with that fear root.
Yeah.
And so that it differs for each individual, right? Some
Right.
people need to release into it fully, the
Right.
fear of the fall, right? And just
Yeah.
really jump in and dive. And that's a process. And I also am very clear with this, right? I oftentimes will tell people, don't go set a boundary right after this, being like, okay, I'm ready to go set boundaries in my work environment. And the next thing, especially as entrepreneurs, right? Your 5 clients just say, okay, we're done working with you.
Love it.
There is a process, there is a reality, there are outcomes that arise from the choices that we make.
Right.
And we also need to take a real hard look at what are our trend lines, right? If I'm moving a mile a minute and I'm always moving a mile a minute, well, is that how I want to move? I've talked to a lot of executives, talked to a lot of C-suites, I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and some of them work 65, 70-hour weeks and they want to. And I'm like,
Right.
great, no problem. Great, that's no problem at all. But
Yeah.
is that a conscious choice? If it is,
Mm.
cool. Some people are on full mission. They're like, no, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Great.
I
No
love it.
judgment.
Thank you for giving me that grace and space for that because that's me. Like I
Yeah.
love working and it's my jam. But I'm saying I
Yeah.
have full support from my fiance. I have full support from my team. They know that they don't have to work if I'm working. I set their boundaries to, hey, this is what is expected. If you go above and beyond, great. But me, dude, if I'm doing something at 1 a.m, it's because I want to. It's not because I absolutely have to. And what I love that I'm hearing about this, and squad, really listen in here, so that she is not cookie cutter. She believes that inch by inch, it's a cinch. By the yard, it's hard. She's not asking you to make a change now. She's asking you to make a change gradually. And I'm pretty positive through your protocol that you help your clients do that, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a process. I still practice this. I tell people all the time, I did not get into this because I had it figured out. I got into this. I got into
Dude,
this because I
so
desperately needed it.
you are my sister from another mister, man. 'Cause I'll tell you, like we learn on the fly a lot, don't we? Like we do, and
Absolutely.
adjust on the fly. I absolutely love that. So if you're maybe you coach clients one-on-one,
I
Woodrie?
do. I
Okay.
do a fair amount of one-on-one
Yeah.
coaching, and I
You can do
also
some
coach
group.
teams. I do both. I do one-on-ones and a lot of teamwork.
Okay. Awesome. So if you're in a one-on-one, maybe in that discovery conversation, making sure you're the right horse for the course for them, right? The right coach. Is there any secret sauce you don't mind sharing that maybe you can help them find and shine that light on their initial blind spot to get them going?
Yeah. Oh, so good. I'm typically so in the moment with an individual. It
Mhm.
kind of goes on based on where it
Yes.
is. But my
Yeah.
initial thought is just, how you doing?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
are things going?
I think you
Right?
listen
Like,
with
how
your
are they
neck.
really going? Say that again.
I
Sorry.
think you listen with your neck. I think that I think your curiosity is a lot like mine, to where it's curiosity, right? That's
Yeah.
like you really are listening, not just but you're really locked into them, and that's a trait that I can even tell just off of our conversation. You were locked into us, and we were talking about Philippines and everything else. There was nothing else that mattered, and you were just looking. And it's funny, from a sports analogy, I look for the opening. Right? I'm looking, like, grow up playing them and stuff like that. And a lot of the people I'm blessed to coach, they have that back. So, and I'm able to do that. But maybe in that discovery conversation, Woodrie, is there any good question that you wish they would ask you but never do?
Hmm. What's possible?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Because they wouldn't be with you. I'm sorry, they wouldn't be just saying, I mean, you're a great person. I'm sure you're great to hang out with, but they wouldn't be coming to you unless they wanted to know what could come of the situation, because you're charged good money and you're worth every millicent of it. But that's a fantastic, you hear that, squad. If you're starting to work with a coach, ask them seriously what is possible, no matter what genre of coaching that you're really going into with a coach. So what do you think makes a great coach?
Hmm. I think first and foremost, it's the work we put into ourselves,
Hmm.
right? It's how we show up for ourselves. And then everything out of that arises, right? It's full circle back to where we started. It's it's also funny that the more I get into coaching and the longer I've been doing this,
You're
the more
awesome. This is so good. Go ahead.
I
Sorry. No, this is good.
oh, likewise. I mean, I think that the more I get into this, the more I realize. I had a really dear friend of mine who's also a coach. And she said the older she gets, the more she just wants to have a cup of coffee with somebody or a
And
cup of
give.
tea,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's just, what do you need? How can I serve?
Right.
And where are we going? Where do you
Sure.
want to go?
Love
And
it.
I think we as humans,
Yes.
we limit we limit where we can go, and we
Yeah.
don't even know, right? Going back to the role model, I tell this to teams a lot and individuals. How would we ever know what is possible in terms of how we choose to work and how we choose to approach our work if we've never seen it? And I say this with total love. I adore my parents. My parents are my heroes in many ways.
Mine too.
And
Yeah.
and they'll be listening to this, I'm sure, later on. They're my biggest fans, right, to this day. And I'm so
Love
grateful
you,
they're still.
Ferguson's. Love it.
I know, right? Ferguson's, that's right. They're still on this earth, and I'm so grateful for that.
Hmm.
But the thing for me with that is my parents know this. They were massive workaholics. I was an
Yeah.
only child.
Yeah.
I was at home a lot,
Sure.
alone. And there is no doubt that this is why I do this work. I
Wow.
do this work not just because of the amount of stress on the
Hmm.
individual.
Hmm.
I do this work for the kids at home and for the community members at home. Our communities are breaking at
Yeah.
a very rapid rate, and they
Yeah.
need support and they need connection. And we aren't going to do that, and we're not going to give that to them. We're not going to be able to support our communities if we are exhausted, depleted, and drained at the end of every day. We can't do
Sure.
it.
Yeah. It's hard to give back unless we, like you said, set those boundaries
Mhm.
to and protect your bandwidth. You only have so much
Yeah.
before you run out. And so what are some exercises that you really kind of maybe put them through with that are their bandwidth's running out? Like they're coming to you and say, listen, at the end of the day, I don't have time for my kids. Like I know that there's a lot more that goes into under the surface, but is there any kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
like maybe examples that you might give to them?
Sure. Three great examples. So the first one is build some awareness around what boundaries really are. The vast majority of us don't even know what a boundary is. We all kind of have this different idea or concept of it. We can't have an honest conversation about boundaries if we don't talk about limits as well. So a limit, just to give some base to that, and then I'll give two other pieces here in a minute.
Sure.
Limits are really, it's that point that we can't go beyond. They're not good or bad. They're not right or wrong. They just are, right? A limit, we can't go beyond that. The boundary is what we put around the limit, all right? The boundary is what we put around the limit to keep that limit from being hit. And I'll just give an example. There's tons of limits. There's emotional limits, mental limits, physical limits, all sorts of limits. A great example of this is, let's say it's a Tuesday and it's a really, really crappy Tuesday. And I go through Tuesday and I'm back-to-back meetings. Wednesday rolls around, same thing. But at the end of my meeting on Wednesday, just before I head home, it erupts and there's some massive conflict. And I come home, it's not 7 o'clock by the time I walk in the door, dogs barking, kids are crying, dinner's not on the table because my partner's moved a mile a minute that day too, and I lose it, right? That's me hitting my emotional limit. Not right or wrong, not good or bad, but that's my emotional limit.
I love it. Yeah, it's so true.
And so next time what I can do is I can recognize, oh, dog's tail is between his legs. Kids kind of look at me like, Mom, what just happened? Partner's really pissed, pardon my language, but you know, and at the end of that, I kind of reflect and I'm like, oh, okay. That wasn't very skillful. What can I do next time? I can pull off the side of the road next time, right? I can pull off the side of the road and I can pause,
decompress
before I walk in the door when I have 2 days in a row like that.
Thank you.
And that's me setting my boundary, right, around that limit.
Yeah.
So if we don't understand boundaries and limits, we oftentimes we'll hit our limits and then set our boundaries. But if we understand boundaries and limits, we can set our boundaries before hitting our limits.
That's so good. That's so good.
So that's the first thing.
Sure.
Get some language around boundaries and limits. Get some understanding around it. And then the other two things, really simple, pause points. I'm a huge firm believer in pause points throughout the day. Strategic pause points are really needed for both individuals and teams, right? Strategic pause points. And then whenever you can do that, it can be 2 minutes in between meetings. It can be, if you get really good at it, you only need a minute. And then third piece after strategic pause points is really take a look at the workflow that you have. What's keeping you stuck?
Wow.
Those three pieces are really foundational.
And I think that if you lock into these, really lock into them, that you can have like almost kind of like what I call my decompression time. When I pull in and I know that Susan's had a crazy day. When we're blessed, we're older, so it's like our kids are gone and stuff like that. But we also know that we've had our days. I'm not bringing my day into her. That's my boundary. Is my car is like where it ends. And I do have, it's funny that you say this because I do have two decompression confidants that we can text each other, call each other. We pick up too, just to kind of, although there was one time that all three of us had the same issue, so it got a little weird. But I'm glad that you're telling them they give themselves grace and space and know what their boundaries and limits are, pause points in workflow. That's just beautiful, man. Going to for saying that. And have you seen the movie Back to the Future?
Yes.
Okay.
We watched it with my daughter recently.
I love it. I love it. So it's going to be 50 or 40 years old like next year. Yeah, I was 12 when it came out. So it's crazy. So, but let's get that DeLorean with Marty McFly. Let's go back to the Double Deuce. Okay. The 22-year-old Woodrie. Okay. What kind of knowledge nuggets might you drop on her? Not so much to change anything because you have a beautiful family and everything, but maybe to help her shorten her learning curve and blast through maybe just a little bit quicker.
I love that question. I think the first one is you have a lot more power than you realize you do.
Yes. Unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. So if you're good at your job, and I would say most of us are pretty good at our job, right? Most of us are good at our job. You have more power. You have more choice than you ever realize. A lot of times we're externally trying to please. I know from my life, I spent a lot of my life trying to be a people pleaser, trying to be a boss pleaser, trying to make everybody happy,
Yeah.
and at the complete expense of myself. And
Right.
what I did not know was that I was good at my job. And I could actually say no sometimes. And I have a funny story around this if I can,
Please tell it.
go there. So when I remember this very distinctly. So when I was in my 20s, my husband and I at the time, I decided to quit my job, but we had planned this trip afterwards. So I knew we planned a really long trip actually. So I was quitting and then we were going to go do this little rendezvous. But because of that, I had about a 6-month time period where I knew I was going to quit and I didn't say a word to anyone. I was silent on it. So this is what's fascinating.
When you
It was
say
almost like
anyone?
not well, besides my parents. My parents knew.
Okay.
And so, and family knew, but nobody at work. And my work was kind of like and I know there's some arguments now not to say work family, but I don't know.
Though.
For me,
I mean, yeah, I have mine. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, close people. So my point is, as I slowly got to that point, the pressure was releasing internally. And I started backing off because I knew deep down I was going to work. Now, keep in mind, I was working 60, 65-hour weeks consistently. So my version of backing off was like 50. But here's the funny thing. I got better at my job as that happened. And that blew me away. I was like, wait a second.
Knowing you're going to quit, you got better.
Yeah. Because what was happening for me, remember how I was telling we got to kind of know who we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a driver. I've always been a driver.
ID. Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So I know my value is in backing off, but I've only learned that through that process and experience.
Wow.
At the time when in essence, what was happening for me was I was backing off. And it was kind of surprising me. I was like, how is this happening? I'm getting better. I'm driving more sales. Like all this stuff was just arising because I was backing off.
Right.
And it took me a lot of years to recognize that. And that's my point is recognize your power, recognize you're better than you recognize you are sometimes.
I'm so resonating with you on so many things. It almost goes to like the person who's going on vacation on Friday and how much work he can get done on Thursday. You know what I'm saying? Because you have that, you subconsciously that's coming, and like you almost knew, hey, I'm not going to be here in 6 months, but you just got so much more productive in it. It's just kind of a parallel analogy. So how do you want your dash remembered? That little line in between your incarnation date and your expiration date, your life date and death date. Hopefully it's way down the line, but how does Woodrie want her dash remembered?
Just love.
Just love?
Just love.
I love that. And so then what do you think people might misunderstand the most about Woodrie?
I think they assume I'm softer until they get to know me.
That red side of the purple can kind of come out if need be.
Yeah.
Love it.
I think a lot of times how this work has been approached is it's always through that lens of soft and wellness. But when you get to the root of this, it's expressing your full truth.
100%.
And that is not always easy. You got to work through some fears. The work that I have done in this space and my clients do in this space, and I got to give a shout out to my clients. My clients are amazing. They inspire me every day. Every day they inspire me.
Love
right?
That.
This is not easy work. Boundary work is not easy, but because it's not easy work is exactly why it's so powerful.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
And so that's, I think, what is oftentimes there's kind of this softness, but underneath that, there's a lot of power.
There's a drive. Yeah, absolutely. Because you're passionate. Again, you're spreading so much love and passion, and they see that, and that's why clients come to you and they stay with you, even through the tougher parts of the terrain. Absolutely. So then what is Woodrie's definition of a life well lived?
Present.
Being present?
Being super present.
Yeah. And
super
locked
present.
in. Yeah.
Yeah. And we can't do that when we're exhausted.
Sure.
Right. We really can't. And I'm when we look at focus and attention right now, and I'm reading this book that I'm really digging right now. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Actually, it's funny. I've got it on my desk right here.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Stolen Focus. I've heard of it.
But
I haven't dug into it
yeah,
yet, though. No.
it's Stolen Focus by Johan Hari, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right, but it's fantastic. And I just think attention and focus, we're just so pressed for time. It feels like we've entered this new era, if you will, of almost forgetting ourselves and everyone around us with our smartphones and our notifications and da 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 da, right? Yeah, for me, it's all about being present so you can be there.
Yeah, I love that. And so many times it's like even with some of my coaching clients, I mean, I'm telling it because I coach from a place of neutrality, right? Where if I'm blessed to coach somebody in person, I put them in the driver's seat of their car, right? And I sit in the car with them and I say, listen, this rearview mirror, it's small for a reason, because that's where your past is. If you're having a lot of issues there, that's therapy. You probably need therapy there. It's a great place to visit and learn from, but we can't pull that stuff forward. The windshield, big, scary, where are we going? But since 2011, they've started putting around that time, they started putting in most cars this GPS thing. And that's what I am. I mean, it's like I can't buckle the seatbelt if you so choose to, start the car, put it in gear and go. But if we can kind of plug in from a neutral position of where we're going, we can get you there. And the boundaries will be set along the way. And just how you were like kind of putting that, just brought that to total mind of really just being present, being neutral, and really methodical to a point, not analysis paralysis, but like just kind of like just there. And the faster time goes on most people, the better time you're having. So like old Ferris Bueller said, another John Hughes film says, listen, you better slow down a minute because life just kind of flies by. Stop and look, because if you're having bad times, time goes slow. You're like, shit, man, it's never going to end, right? But if you're having a good time, it flies by. So I always tell them, strive for a good time, but stay neutral enough to be like, listen, we're going to actually enjoy this as well. I love that. Love it. And
you're making me think I had a coach or someone tell me, go to where the juice is.
Yeah.
Right. I think of like
100%.
kids. Kids are experts at this, right? You watch little ones, they know exactly what. Give me the cookie. I want the cookie, right?
Yeah. I mean, we are born salespeople, right? We're born. I mean, when your child cries and you don't feed him or her, dude, they're going to keep selling you until they get fed, right? Yeah. And we're told no an average of 135,000 times by the time we're 13. So no wonder we get that negative connotation that settles in. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we were born salesmen, and we just got people like you and I, we kind of revert them back to being able to be, it's okay to ask. And you basically, like what Leah Woodford would say, get your asking gear, right? It's okay to ask for the help. I love it. Time to Shine Today podcast Varsity Squad. We are back. And Woodrie, I hope to meet with you one day. You never know, because Susan and I have talked about going up into Alaska. And actually, you can see Juno Beach. This is actually kind of named after Juno, spelled differently up there. It's kind of where we live. But, and I kind of wore it for you. Anyways,
nice,
but we might meet, have a cup of coffee, and talk about some of these questions for 15, 20 minutes. But today you have 5 seconds with no explanations. And I promise you they can all be answered that way. You ready to level up?
Ready.
Here we go. All right, Woodrie, what is the best leveling up advice you've ever received?
Say thank you.
Yes. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
Self-compassion.
Yes. You see me kind of like walking down the street, you're like, or at a networking event or anywhere, and Fergie looks like he's in his doldrums a little bit. What book might you hand me to level me up? Get me out of a funk.
I have so many. I think this is my challenge. I know I'm working my one word. I'm like, I have too many. Chicken soup for the soul.
Oh, there you go. Love that. Your most commonly used emoji when you text?
Heart.
Yeah. Nicknames growing up?
Woods.
Love it. Do you have any hidden talent and or superpower that nobody knows about until now?
I love to garden.
Right. Chess, checkers, or Monopoly?
Monopoly.
Yeah, me too. Headline for your life?
Live fully.
Yes. So any superstitions you ever buy into?
Not really.
Excellent. Go-to ice cream flavor.
I love moose tracks. There's an Alaskan version
They're
of moose
so good.
tracks. And it's kind of a combination of peanut butter and
Yes,
chocolate.
so
That's my
good.
combo.
So good. There's the sandwich called the Wood. Build that sandwich for me. What's on it?
Oh, lettuce, bacon, tomatoes, mayo.
Mm.
Maybe a little bit of like, if I want to get really crazy, I do like a little bit of pesto mayo.
I love that you put some man candy on there. That bacon, so good.
Gotta
Favorite
go.
charity and or organization like to give your time or money to?
I love so many. Covenant House in Alaska. It's for homeless youth.
Oh, nice. Thank you for doing that. And the last question, you can elaborate on this one a little bit, but what's the best decade of music? 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s?
80s.
There you go. Big hair, don't care. I mean, I graduated in 1990, so it was like the 80s was my jam, and it had so much. It like phased out disco and brought in like, I mean, you had like the invasions from other countries, like U2 and Duran Duran, Culture Club, or then you had rap with the Beastie Boys and Run DMC. You had the big hair, don't care, glam rock, metal rock. Yeah, it was so fun.
It's the best, and
so
it's
fun.
clean. I think the reason why I love it is it's clean. I can show it to my kid, I
Mm,
mean, like, no problem. Like, we're an 80s house,
that's
just
cool.
rocking it.
I love it. I love it. So, Woodrie, how can we find you, love?
Oh yeah, you can find me on workboundaries.com and ping us. I've got a team behind me too. Ping us anytime with questions. We really truly do love it.
Yeah.
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. We have a Boundaries Before Burnout free group as well on Facebook,
Oh, wow.
where we
There's a
just do
group
a
on
handful of
Facebook,
videos.
Boundaries for
Yeah,
Burnout.
group on
Okay.
Facebook. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. And also you do have, let me see, you have a burnout or burnt, what is it? The boot camp. Tell us about the
Yeah.
boot camp that you offer.
Yeah, we do. So we do a monthly boot camp where we have a couple classes every month. We are sold out, I want to say until about June right now.
Okay.
But we open those up, and it's just it's a great class. It's two classes a month where we go through details about the basics of boundaries and how to support yourself, and some really great tools and tips and tricks. Yeah, it's really nice.
Is it monthly?
Yeah, so we do
Okay.
it monthly. We do it monthly. And then
Okay.
what we do is a combination. We open it up to the public, and then sometimes we'll do it with just our clients as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. And
Yeah.
what is like, do they find that on the website?
Yeah, they can find
Okay.
it on the website. If you go under services, you'll find the spot to sign up. I think right now we have a wait list on it,
Okay.
and they can sign up right there.
Excellent. Excellent. And I'll put all of that, make sure all of that's in the show notes for them
Thank
to
you.
visit. And please check the show notes below, Squad. And Woodrie, if you could do me one last solid and leave us with one last knowledge nugget we can take with us, internalize, and take action on.
Yeah. Best action, focus on those pause points in the day. I oftentimes will share with people, I think the biggest game changer for us that I've seen is claiming strategic time for ourselves in the day. Claim that strategic time, make it part of your schedule, and use those pause points.
I love that. And Squad, I know that I picked up a lot of good tips here about like building boundaries, and I'm going to probably implement it a little bit with some of my clients. I'm not a boundary coach by any means, but if we kind of run into that and I can handle it with just a couple questions, and I'm definitely going to do that. If not, I am going to pass them off to my good friend Woodrie, who was a push and push harder kind of person, developed some chronic back pain. Like she searched and searched and searched for something to help her find that harmony in her life, right? And that she really is somebody that I respect immensely because she did the homework on herself before she really kind of rolled it into other people. She reminded us that work wellness is a $50, wouldn't that be nice? $50 billion industry. The roots of our boundaries provides us a deep connection to ourself and others. I never really thought about that, the actual roots. I understand there's boundaries that connected, but it's the roots where the meat needs the moment. And I'm kind of going off my notes here, and I might be going off script. I'm going to fix all of this, but the value and the opportunity is actually in backing off just a hair. Like when you see something and you want to go forward, sometimes backing off with the boundaries and maybe talking to somebody like Woodrie will have an immense effect on you. I mean, Woodrie is somebody that is planting trees she's never going to sit in the shade of. She's somebody I immensely respect because what she's telling is going to keep passing down and passing down. And one thing also I love about her is she does things for the intention, not the attention. She's not out there saying, look at me, look at me. She's really, really dialed into you. She wants you to really find those role models that have healthy role models, like see people that you might want to emulate and get there, like live by the plus equals minus that I talk about a lot. Like every day, find someone you kind of want to emulate and see what works for them in their boundaries. And then also find someone that is equal, like me and Woodrie are kind of bouncing stuff off each other right now. And then also send that elevator down, the minus, to pull somebody up to where you're at right now. She reminds us to know what your trend lines are. Ask your coach what is possible if you're starting to work with them. And you can tell the work that a great coach puts into themselves, usually during the first discussion that you have. She reminded us that you have a lot more power than you realize that you do. Really dig into your pause points, dig into your workflow. I'm abbreviating so much stuff that she went into depth with. So if you want to rewind and go and listen to it again, please feel free to do that. If not, please let me make a warm introduction to my good friend Woodrie, who levels up her health. She levels up her wealth. She's humble, yet she's hungry. She sets those boundaries. She's absolutely stunning. She's earned a varsity squad letter here at Time to Shine today. Thank you so much, Woodrie, for coming on. Absolutely love your guts.
Thanks so much.
You're
so
welcome.
Great to join you.
Yay, chat soon.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Time to Shine Today podcast, proudly brought to you by Sutter and Nugent Real Estate Excellence, who can be reached at 561-249-7266 and online at www.sutterandnugent.com. If you are a business owner or professional who would like to be interviewed on Time to Shine Today, please visit timetoshinetoday.com/guest. If you like this episode, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to our website. Also there, you will see our recommended resources. We hope that you will support our show by supporting them. If you like what you've been listening to, it'd be great if you could just give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe while you're at it. I'm your host, Scott Ferguson, and until next time, let's level up. It's our time to shine.